Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're looking some time back, well back in history actually. Kodak, the very first camera that Kodak made, came preloaded with the film, and it was 100 exposures. So you'd take the 100 pictures and then you'd send the whole thing back to Kodak and they would process the film and give you back a set of prints. And they would also reload the camera with a fresh film and send the camera back to you. But that camera at the time cost $25, which at the turn of the century, this is last century, 1900s, that's quite expensive. But it carried on, and Kodak sort of built and grew on the back of that camera. But it was a camera for quite rich people. That was the Brownie number 1. What we're going to look at today is the Brownie number 2, and in particular the F version of the Brownie number 2, which is what I have here. So this camera dates from 1924, so it's about, I don't know, 90 something years old, and the F is quite revolutionary. All the early Kodaks were made out of cardboard that was then covered in a kind of faux leather. This one's made out of aluminium. This one's actually metal. And Kodak has a history, which sort of started with this camera, of introducing film formats tied to their specific model or range of cameras. And this camera, interestingly enough, takes what we know today, and it's always been known actually, as 120 roll film. So this is where 120 roll film started. And the idea was that obviously Kodak would sell you the film and sell you the processing of the film, and that enabled them to sell the camera at a much cheaper price. The basic Model 2 Brownie was $2. This one, being metal, is kind of the top of the range, and this was $2.75. So it was around about a tenth of the price of the Brownie ones, and obviously that opened up photography to a real mass market, and that's what Kodak's fortunes was really built on, was the processing of the film, not the selling of the cameras. You've seen they've done this all the way through history. Think about things like the 126, the 127, all the different formats that they bring out for a range of cameras. They're trying to collar the market, but obviously other people started making films, and overall it didn't work, although I know Kodak are bringing films back now. They seem to be over the worst of their troubles. But this is where it all started. This was the first Kodak camera that took interchangeable film rolls, and they were 120. So, brief bit of history there. Let's have a look at the camera. It's very light because it's aluminium, and there is not a lot to it, to be honest. There's a meniscus lens on the front. There is a revolving shutter. So here's your shutter. And again, it has 2 shutter speeds, whatever that one is, which I think is about a 30th. And then if you pull this lever up here, you can see there's a lever just there. If you pull that up, that is your B setting. So as long as it's there. So you've got B and about a 30th. And you have 3 aperture settings, and again you'll see here there's a little tab, which if you've got fingernails, which I haven't, pulls up. So there's 1 aperture. Put this on B, and I'll be able to see what's going on if this one works. So there's an aperture. There's a slightly more open aperture, and there's an even bigger aperture. So you have the choice of 3 apertures, which is basically 3 holes drilled in a piece of metal. And you can just about see the lens behind it. The lens isn't at the front here, the lens is behind. Okay, For composing your shot, this is one viewfinder, although it's incredibly dim, you can't see anything through it because it's just so dim now. And this is the this way. It's not a square format, as you'll see when we open it up. I think it's 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. 6 by 9 I would call it. I think it's about 6 by 9. So you've got one viewfinder coming out of there for this angle, and another viewfinder coming out of this top hole for that angle. That's your shutter button, or your shutter speed selector between B and I think it's a 30th. And this one adjusts your 3 apertures. So on a bright day you'd obviously want the small hole one. On a dull day you'd want the bigger hole. Sunny 16. Carrying handle. Nothing on the sides. There is a tripod mount on the bottom. The sides are totally devoid, apart from this one has a winding crank here. And on the back, to open the back, you push down and slide this over, and then the back comes off. It's held on. There's 2 holes in the bottom, and there's 2 sort of little lugs down there. This is the inside of the camera. You can see the lens down in there. So this has an internal part. So if you pull this out and turn, so it's in the outside position. This is the internal workings of the camera. This is why they're called box cameras, and it's just a box. So this is the internal. Very, very simple. So our fresh film goes in the top part, and the film needs to be obviously against this side here to be exposed. So that fits in there, comes over the rollers, and just like you do with cameras today, insert the leader of the paper in and wind it on. That goes in there like so. Very simple to load. Goes like so. You can hold this bit back in. As you see, it should take the film on. Here's the back. Has a little window. This is how you can tell the exposures. It has a bit of a pressure plate on it. You can see here, number 2 Brownie model F. Here's the relevant patents from 1914 through to 1916. So you line up those lug holes on the bottom and close the back. And it's a case of winding the paper through until you drag the film through. Like so. I can see the paper moving. There's an arrow, and keep winding little circles, and there's the number 1. So that's how you load a Brownie number 2. I'm going to push that down because I don't particularly want to use it on the B setting. So there we are, folks. This one actually dates from 1934, I believe. So yeah, 1934, pre-war. No exposure meter, obviously, Sunny 16 rule. And Yeah, black and white film's got quite a lot of latitude, hasn't it? So we'll be interested to see what the results are like. But yeah, the world's first 120 format camera. It's not 120mm. I've seen this come up quite a bit on the internet. 35mm is 35mm. It was a cine film. It's roughly half a 70mm, which is also a cine film. This is just 120. Kodak invented 120. This was the first camera to use 120, and we're still using it all these years later. It's regarded as medium format, whereas in these days it was the norm. So there you go, folks, the first 120 film camera, 1934, the Kodak Brownie Mark II, and this is the F version. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, query, subscribe. If you use one of these cameras, give us a shout and let us know what they're like. From what I've seen, they look as though they're quite good lenses, actually, considering the age of them. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.